my name is Lauren Koster, and I am very afraid. Today I'm going to be ranking every Sarah J Maas book from my least to most favourite because we still don't have an ACOTAR 6 announcement and I am going stir crazy. I will preface this by saying that Sarah J Maas is one of my favourite authors of all time. Her work is so impactful and it provides comfort and excitement and an escape for so many of us. And she's inspired a whole new generation of readers, which is so important. All that to say, these are just my silly little opinions. Feel free to let me know if you disagree with me in the comments or if you agree, hopefully. Okay, let's do this. First up, I don't know how much of a surprise this is going to be to anyone, A Court of Frost and Starlight, aka the ACOTAR Christmas special. Overall, it's kind of just at the bottom because it's not as epic as most of SJM's books are. But that's not to say that I didn't enjoy reading this novella. It was actually really nice to see these characters in regular life and not in such tense, high-stakes situations. I could understand why people found the first to third person switch a little bit jarring. I personally didn't really mind it, but I can see why some people found it annoying to keep going from I did this to he did that. But I think another reason that this is at the bottom is because I bought each book individually, which was really stupid because I could have saved so much money. And when it showed up, it was obviously that big and I was like, where's the rest of it? And so for that reason, it's going on the bottom. Next, I am concerned for my safety. Next up is The Assassin's Blade, which is the Throne of Glass prequel. Now, before anyone gets upset with me, hear me out. I think that the Sam Cortlandt short story is one of the most important stories / bits of context for the entire Throne of Glass series. It makes his very glaring absence throughout the rest of the series extremely poignant and felt by the reader. However, the thought of someone entering Throne of Glass with this? Jail time. It is supposed to go Throne of Glass, Crown of Midnight, Assassin's Blade, and then you carry on. And like, if I'm being completely honest, I kind of thought the other 3 short stories were kind of like, meh. I know it introduces some characters that we see later on, like Irene, but realistically, we could have just introduced her in Tower of Dawn, and I think it would have been as compelling. It was obviously really cool to see how Selena ends up in the Endovia mines, and it also makes us hate Arobynn even more. But aside from that, it was kind of understandable as like a separate blog post / additional chapter like the ACOTAR ones, and I do think it did deserve its own book, but I think this is fair. Next! Alright, we've got our first brick, House of Flame and Shadow, which is the 3rd book in the Crescent City series. I want to start by saying that I actually love Crescent City as a series. It was the first urban fantasy I ever read. I liked seeing how magic and technology can kind of work together, and also there was all this new lore and magic and all these new creatures that we got introduced to. And don't get me wrong, any extra book time with Azrael is welcome. However, I feel like I'm going to be saying that word a lot in this video. A lot of the characters in this book that we have spent thousands of pages getting to know did things that just seemed really out of character. I think the main offender of this was Bryce, our main character. In this book, she was just kind of annoying and rude. Hate to say it. There's a difference between having an FMC that is, you know, super smart and confident and secretive when she needs to be, who reveals information when it's actually needed, versus someone who's just kind of arrogant and secretive for seemingly no reason at all. I mean, she tricked Nesta and Azrael and they almost died fighting this Middengard worm, and they were literally nothing but nice to her. So, also Rune shooting Lydia. And unfortunately, we got kind of another instance of there not being much in the way of stakes at the end. It was kind of a surreal situation, and what I mean by that is that we had a side character die, but none of the lead crew, if you will. You'll see where it is in the ranking, but I loved House of Sky and Breath, and so when this came after it, I was just kind of that little bit extra disappointed. I feel really bad. Next. Oh god, okay. Rowan girlies. Fire. If I'm gonna be real with you, this is here because I didn't remember what happened in this book. With all of the others, even though I read them kind of over the space of last year and this year, I had like very strong memories of what had happened in most of the Throne of Glass books. I looked at this title and I was just like, did I even read that? And so I googled it, and it turns out this is the book where Rowan is like training Aelin. You know, it's got a lot of Aelin's healing journey in it, which is obviously very important character development wise, but it was kind of giving the second Lord of the Rings book where they're just kind of traveling and talking and it's all a setup for like what's going to happen. This was all kind of just a setup for the later books, which is fine. It was still like an engaging read, but it just wasn't as good as some of the other Throne of Glass books. This is gonna fall over, I just know. Next! Okay guys, it's time! A Court of Thorns and Roses, baby! I feel like some of you thought this would be lower and then some of you would have thought this would be a lot higher, so let me know which team you're on. The reason why it's as high as it is and why I kind of wish it could be higher is because this book really got me back into reading, and I know it did the same for so many other people, and it actually got people into reading, which, as I said at the start of the video, is so important. There are so many amazing fantasy writers out there, and without this book I never would have read any of their work. I've always been an avid reader throughout my life, but I think ACOTAR reignited this spark within me. I remember when I was a bit younger and I used to read the Aragon books, and there was just this like incredible epic world inside my head, and I think as I got a bit older I kind of lost that a bit, and then this came along. I think we can call it the ACOTAR effect, and it has rippled across the entire world. I've actually made a video on just this book and I will link it somewhere. There are obviously some spicy scenes in this book and those continue throughout the series. We will get to Silver Flames in a minute, I promise. But those scenes are not the defining characteristic of these books as much as some people would like you to believe. These are beautiful political books about healing, self-actualization, love, and war. If ACOTAR was written by a man, do we think it would have been called smut? Something to think about. As a story, I love the writing itself. I love looking back at all of the Easter eggs that are sewn in right from the beginning of this book. Here it comes again. However, Tamlin is the love interest, and therefore I cannot put it any higher on my ranking. Next! Many of you are probably going to be shocked that this is quite as high up on the list as it is, but guys, we have to give up with the Chaol hate, okay? He's like one of the only human guys in this world full of fae and witches and just anything that is stronger and more powerful than him. And even though he makes a lot of mistakes, I think he deserves to find Irene as a partner. I think he deserved his own story to allow a bit of growth. And the mystery about who the Valg is actually quite exciting. The reveal, however, is not as exciting. The person who ends up being possessed is not really on the page that much, unfortunately. That kind of leads me on to this next point, which is I don't think the Nezran story was needed. Obviously they needed to find a way to like join the Southern Kingdom's forces and give them a reason to fight, but I feel like she wasn't in it enough beforehand for me to be like, oh, she deserves 400 pages of this book to be devoted to her, you know? Again, I really did enjoy it, but I didn't do the tandem read, stupidly, and so I finished Empire of Storms and then I had that to get through before Kingdom of Ash. I had to get through, let me look. 660 pages. I wanted to die. So yeah, maybe if I had done the tandem read, this would be a little bit higher, a little bit lower, who knows? But the way I read it, this is where it is. I think it could have been half the length, but I still had a great time. Next, House of Earth and Blood, book 1 of the Crescent City series. Okay, I have a lot to say about this one. As I said before, I really, really like Crescent City. I like Bryce until the last book. I like Hunt, I like their relationship, I like the romance, I like the story, I like the mystery, I love it all. But the first like 250 pages of this book is primarily exposition and context. If SJM wasn't an established author already with 2 very successful series under her belt, would as many people have read this book or like persevered through basically a book's worth of exposition? I don't know. It was still interesting to read about this world, but I feel like she could have seeded in that exposition throughout the book rather than being like, here's the entire lore of this world, now here's the story. Yes, the whole thing with the Danica and the pack happens at the start, but other than that, we kind of don't get that much action. And I'm not saying we need a lot, we just need a bit. It just felt like a bit of a slog getting through that first section. But then the rest of it, I fell in love with this book. I adored the ending with all the portals to hell opening up. It was amazing. And so, yeah, I think if the first 200 pages had either been done differently or, like, as I said, the information kind of seeded in a bit more, this book would have been a lot higher on this list. In the words of Ariana Grande, thank you, next. A Court of Silver Flames. I was really not sure where to put this in the running. This is around the middle of the stack, and I think that's quite fair. We can't talk about Silver Flames without talking about the Rhys-Feyre pregnancy debacle. Going from a trilogy where essentially their whole relationship is based on honesty and choice and independence, him not telling her that this pregnancy is going to kill her was like, what is going on? It felt beyond out of character for Rhys. And I know obviously with the first 3 books being in first person, Feyre is essentially kind of an unreliable narrator, but like, it was never on the page that he would do something like that. I mean, he's very self-sacrificing, and also he wants to protect those he loves. He doesn't want them to be in pain, and so the reasoning he gives on the page, I get it, but also, why did that happen? Why do that? As for the actual main characters of this book, I love Cassian. He's one of the most, if not the most, emotionally intelligent characters SJM has written, and I was really happy to see his point of view on the page and for him to find happiness. I also think the message surrounding his storyline with Nesta is really beautiful. The idea of reaching out a hand to someone who's struggling and just being there until they take it. Some of the scenes actually between him and Nesta where they're discussing who they are and why they are how they are were actually really impactful and hit me quite hard. On the other hand, I don't know if I like Nesta. I like her character. I think she's really intelligent and complex and quite funny in the other ACOTAR books because she is so savage. But as a person, I'm not entirely sure if I'd be friends with her, at least not with the version of her that's in about 80% of this book. That being said, it was actually fascinating to read a book about someone you're not sure you like. Normally, main characters are kind of written to be likable. Obviously, Nesta is compelling, but it was kind of that situation of, I want this person to succeed, but I'm not sure that I'd get on with them if they were standing in front of me. I also think her character development and healing journey was really important, helpful, useful to a lot of people in the book community, and so for that reason I am very glad this book exists. I also loved the Valkyries, and I'm really excited to see where this story goes from here. Oh god, I need ACOTAR 6 so badly. Oh god. Okay, next up we've got Empire of Storms. I love Manon, and so having her as such a sort of lead role in this book was so cool. And obviously the Dorian thing, the politics are politicking, and you can really feel the tension ramping up for the finale of this series. All of the many POVs were so engaging and amazing. I don't know how SJM keeps track of all of them, honestly, it's crazy. Similar to Air of Fire, I did have to do a little refresher on exactly what happens in this book, but I think the main reason for that is because a lot of what happens in this book has been overshadowed in my memory by the cliffhanger. And if you've read it, you know what I mean by that. I'm still not entirely sure I have recovered from that cliffhanger, especially because I then had to read the entirety of Tower of Dawn before I even got to Kingdom of Ash, so I don't even want to talk about it, to be honest. Next, we're on a Throne of Glass roll, ladies and gentlemen. Next up, Crown of Midnight. Again, I'm not a Chaol hater, and so that's why this book has made it so far up the ranking. I actually really quite liked him and Selena together until obviously things fall apart. I also really love all the memes people are making about him being like stunned that an assassin kills people. Like, what did you think she was doing?
Don't call me. Don't come by my house. We're done.
Word keys, Archer Finn, Nehemia, Rebels, Dorian's magic. This book was setting everything up so early on in the series. I think I've also put it so high because this was a book where I really thought I knew where this series was going, and then it did like a, not even a 180, it did like a 470. Yeah, it can do that. It did a 470, and so that's why this book's all the way up here. Am I gonna get a concussion? Maybe. Next! Well, of course. Throne of Glass, the OG. The fact that SJM wrote this when she was 16, I mean, leave some talent for the rest of us, please. Funnily enough, I actually read Throne of Glass when it came out in 2012. I must have been like 10 or 11, I want to say, and the cover looked like this. Bring back the old covers, honestly. I think I was a bit too young, obviously, at the time to really appreciate it, and so I'm so glad that I ended up returning to this world. This is where it all began. And who doesn't love a love triangle and a competition? Going back to this after reading Kingdom of Ash, just out of curiosity, I could not believe how many Easter eggs there were in this book. Right from the beginning, this woman has been plotting. Throne of Glass holds a very special place in my heart, and for that reason it has made it all the way to the top 6. Next, House of Sky and Breath, the second book of the Crescent City series. The relationship between Hunt and Bryce is actually one of my favourite relationships that SJM has written. They're both really supportive of each other and each other's choices, while also being completely separate individuals who choose to be together. Maybe that comes from the fact that they're two different species? I don't know. Either way, I love it. I enjoyed reading about a couple who actually wanted to try and live a normal life and how that eventually obviously doesn't work, but they had that taste of normalcy, and so the absence of that is really felt throughout the whole book. The history of the Starborn Fae is really interesting, the lore gets more and more intricate, and the rebellion side of things is really exciting. We've got Rune and Lydia, aka Night and Day. Admittedly, I think I'm a bit of a Rune girly. I mean, he looks like Reese, so that tracks. And the ending? I have never screamed louder or thrown a book further in my life. Next, taking spot number 4, ACOTAR. I'm a poet. This was an emotional roller coaster from start to finish. We spent Akamath getting to know Reese and Feyre even better, getting to see their romance blossom, but this book was what it says on the tin. It was wings and ruin, aka a war. There was just so much going on, so many relationships developing, so much political intrigue. We got to know a lot of the High Lords as well as a lot of the Inner Circle. I'm currently actually listening to the Fantasy Fangirls podcast, deep diving this book, and it's definitely giving me even more of an appreciation of SJM's writing, which in essence rounded off a really masterfully crafted trilogy. Elaine Arya Starking the shit out of the King of Highburn was delicious. I did want Feyre to be a bit more involved in the action, or to sort of expand on her magic a little bit more. I do understand why she kind of stays out of the war side of things because she's never been to battle before, but at the same time she's Rhys's equal. We all know what happens on page 666. Rhys dies, and then Amren dies, and I was gagged for a page, and then obviously the High Lords revive him, and it just kind of made it feel like everyone is safe. I know a lot of people have theories about who's going to die going forwards in this series, and maybe saving these characters now means that losing characters later will be even more of like a gut punch. I think that maybe one of them could have stayed dead. But then again, I don't know what's going to happen in the next books because we haven't had them yet. Next! Okay, it's time to see who our bronze medalist is. Please put your hands together for Kingdom of Ash. Live, Manon, live. Tell me tomorrow. Close the gate. Come on. This book was a stunning ending to such a long adventure. It was the ending that Throne of Glass deserved. Aylin's escape had my heart beating out of my chest. The final battle was fucking epic. All the characters reuniting at the end was so emotional. And then you got Aylin falling through all the worlds and the first crossover, which was just, I mean, I sat up like, I was like a zombie out of a grave, just. We lost some characters, but none of the kind of main crew. And I know I said for ACOTAR and for Flame and Shadow that I thought it was a little bit safe and removed the stakes. For Kingdom of Ash, it felt right that most of them survived till the end. I think any more loss, especially for Aylin, but for all the characters as a whole, would have just felt wrong. They had to win this war with all the odds stacked against them, and they do. They give everything to destroy the Valg, and so I think that they deserved a little bit of happiness at the end. This is honestly one of the best books I have ever read, and I made the mistake of reading it on holiday. Picture this, I'm in the glorious sunshine by a lovely pool, I'm reading my book, and I get to the end, and I might as well have been in a graveyard. I was in mourning. I genuinely felt like I had lost a loved one. So I can't recommend it enough, honestly. How am I going to do this? Because I think that's the top of the frame. God. Oh, Jesus. Next, my second favourite SJM book is Queen of Shadows. Yes, I put this above Kingdom of Ash. Queen of Shadows is when Aylin really decides to take her throne back and to save the literal world. She decides to be Aylin again. And this is the book that makes Kingdom of Ash possible. She fights Arabin, she saves Aedion, her friendship with Lysandra blossoms, and then you've got the Dorian storyline where he's struggling with the Valg creature inside of him. I'll bleed whatever colour you want me to. And then you got Manon. Her and the witches, yes. Yes, 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 yes. Yes. I do think Throne of Glass as a series is perfect as it is, but if there did happen to be a Manon and Dorian novella, I wouldn't be against it. For the ending, you've got that huge battle in the glass castle where it ends up all coming down and Chaol breaks his back and Dorian breaks free and Aylin takes the tower down and releases magic back into Erelee. It's just like everything is happening in this book. It is so incredibly written and it's perfectly paced. We all know that at the end of an SJM book, like the last 100 pages, it's just mental. But this book kind of felt like that all the way through, and it was, yeah, just exhilarating. And then there's the scene where Aylin goes to Sam's grave and I cry every bloody time I read that part because, God, it's so gorgeous. You would have been a wonderful king. Instant sobbing. Instant tears. Not a single page is wasted. And I know a lot of people say this a lot of the time, but I genuinely could not put this book down. Woo, next! And it's the final one. You know what it is. A Court of Mist and Fury, where ACOTAR is the one that started it all, ACOMAF is the one that solidified that it would continue. This book is so important to so many of us. Rhys and Feyre's relationship is one of the most beautiful representations of love I have seen on a page. Rhys helps her grow and come into her own power, while always giving her the choice of what to do, who to be, and how involved she wants to be in the current affairs. He makes her believe in happiness and there being a possibility for a future again. He surrounds her with a family like she's never had before. She reestablishes her boundaries and finds out who she is outside of Tamlin's belittling repressiveness. She becomes her own strong person and they are a team of equals. I reveled in the politics in this book, the new world building, the additional characters which were so fun to get to know. We got to see so much more of Prythian and who doesn't want to live in Valar. Paris. I mean, come on. Again, this was a book where no page, no word was wasted, and I rediscovered how truly world-altering and mind-shattering fantasy can be. And there we have it, guys. All of the SJM books ranked from my least to most favourite. I now have an excuse to reorganise my bookshelf for the 1000th time, which is very exciting. All of these books brought me so much joy, and they transported me to this other amazing place, aka the inside of Sarah J Maas's head. And I am so looking forward to when we can eventually dive back into the world of ACOTAR, and I know there's another Crescent City on the way, I believe, so whatever comes first, I'm not gonna complain. As I said at the start of the video, please do let me know your thoughts in the comments. I would love for one of you to change my mind. Thanks so much for watching. Please do subscribe if you want to see more, and let me know if there's any books that you would like me to review. I will see you in the next video. Bye!